Hello, this is Real Talk with Keith Seymour. I'm back again. Normally I do politics and current events, but I wanted to, this time I really wanted to speak to my fellow adults. I got home from school yesterday, where I was substituting at one of the local high schools. And I turned on BritBox TV, which I have. It's internet based, not cable based, and it's much superior. Anyway, and I turned on Good Morning Britain. And the question of the day was, is it out of fashion? Is it too old fashioned to let your, to not, to basic table manners, uh, old fashioned? Elbows on tables. When I was, you did not put your elbows on the tables. I still don't put my elbows on the table. My mother's dead. But, or to read at the dinner the table. My mother would tell my father that he wasn't allowed to read the newspaper at the breakfast or the dinner table. I mean, we did not do our homework. We did not read at the table. But now we have parents allowing their kids to use cell phones at the dinner table. And why? Because they don't want to have the argument. Parents, I'm telling you, you're paying for that cell phone. That cell phone is yours. You're paying for the mortgage, the rent, and as long as they live under your roof, they need to follow your rules. And it's not just things like that. It's that we now have 9 and 10-year-olds, even 6 and 7-year-olds I've witnessed, but mostly between 4th and 6th grade, calling their parents by their first name. Two years ago, my niece, when she was 25, did this at a family gathering, Thanksgiving gathering. She was trying to get my sister's attention. And rather than waiting for my sister to finish talking to one of my other siblings who had flown in from Washington, D.C., we hadn't seen her in a while, she yells, "Christy!" I said, "Oh, no, you did not just call your mother by her first name." And my sister says, "Keith, she's an adult. Okay, it's wrong what she did, but you don't need to correct her." I said, if Mom was here, she would correct her. She said, "I know." I said, "So you're saying that because Mom's dead, we don't have to follow the good manners or require her grandchildren to follow the good manners that she taught us to teach them? Is that what you're saying?" Well, the biggest sin in my family is to say that Keith is right. But I was right. Children, I've never agreed with children are meant to be seen and not heard, although I can understand why. I'm beginning to understand why that is. But that's another topic. But basic manners like yes ma'am, Yes, sir. Not calling, not allowing your 10-year-old to call you by your first name. If you're under 18, whether it's a male or female, you don't ask their age. You don't ask people, grown-ups, how much they make or how much they pay for their car or their house. All you need to know is that you have a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and your parents. That's the way it should be. People say to me, Keith, I don't know why you went from becoming a writer, an ad sales representative, to substitute teaching and wanting to become a full-time teacher. I don't get it. It would drive me crazy. I said, because I want to have a positive effect. But they said if it was me, I'd knock the block off these kids. The problem is we're failing our kids. Basic manners. Okay? If I use the curse words in front of my mother or father that these kids use on a regular basis, if I used the N word, and I was adopted into a white family, I would have had my butt tanned. Another example is when the same niece was 14 years old. I was over at my sister's house. I said, so you're having chicken nuggets? She said, no, Allison doesn't like chicken. We're having spaghetti. I said, since when does a 14-year-old dictate what what you fix her for dinner? It's a matter of respect. So I'm simply saying this to all grown-ups everywhere. It's fine to be friendly with kids, but you're not there to be their friends. You're there to be their mentors. You're there to be their parents, aunts, uncles. They are not your peers. I am 57. My 26-year-old niece, my 35-year-old niece. Although they're over 18, they are not my peers and they will never be my peers. It is Uncle Keith, Sir, Mr. Seymour. Good manners don't go out of style. I live in a district that has been among the top districts for over 100 years in the state of South Carolina and the top in the Midlands area of South Carolina. But I'm going to let you know something. Until 2000, we never had an alternative school. Well, we do now. What we had was after school detention, Friday detention, Saturday detention, all day Saturday. And if our parents had to interrupt their schedules and or their rest, they made sure that we did not get detention home again. If they had to take off early from work to pick us up, if they had to interrupt their weekend grading papers. My mother was a teacher. Or their rest. Then basically, they made sure, at the very least, we got a speech. That basically, and at the very most, we got worse. Kids are misbehaving now more and more because we are letting them get away with small things. We are letting them call us by our first names. We are letting them use their cell phones at the dinner table. We don't require them to take off a hat when they enter the house. And we allow them, and we say they're just going through a phase if they use foul language. Yeah, they may be going through a phase, but when I went through that sort of phase, I was taken out of it rather quickly. These are the kids that are going to end up in juvenile detention before they enter college. These are the kids that we are seeing increasingly more in jail. My favorite line from one of my favorite characters is from Tyler Perry's Medea. She always has some smart alecky little girl who she's foster living under her roof, whether it's a grandniece or a foster child. And that little girl says, "Oh yeah, you touch me, old lady, I'll dial 911." And Tyler Perry's Medea says, "Yeah, my daughter tried that once and I knocked her so hard she dialed 919. Now, I'm not suggesting that you give your kids a whooping. I am saying, however, that you need to get back to the basics. They take that cell phone to the dinner table, you warn them once. It comes a second time, you take it out of their hand, and you take it away for a week or a month or how long. They call you by your first name. You tell them you call me dad, you call me mom. If you can't remember that, you call me sir or ma'am. But you don't call me by my first name. A lot of the parents that are complaining about the bad behavior their children are exhibiting are contributing to it. They are encouraging it. And they're bringing it into the classroom. And a couple of years ago, I was doing a long-term at one of the middle schools for an English teacher. And one of the new kids, I guess he was from Texas or whatever, he noticed my name badge. And he said, "Oh, your name's Keith too." I said, "Yeah, it's a good name to have." Didn't think anything of it. So he sees me at lunch and he says, "Hey, Keith." I ignore him. He taps me on the shoulder, turn around and he says, "Hey, Keith." I said, "What'd you call me?" He said, "Your name's Keith." I said, no, my first name to you is Mr. My last name is Seymour. You ought to call me Mr. Seymour. If you can't remember that, you call me sir. This was a little white kid about, well, he's sixth grade, so he's about 11 years old. So I've been doing this teacher for about 2 weeks, and then the first week I introduced myself to the mother. He said, oh, you're the one who tells my child he's got to treat you like a slave. I said, what? She said, yeah, my child has the same name. I know who your child is, ma'am. What's this about? She said, you said that my child is either to call you Mr. Seymour or sir. I said, yes, ma'am. That's how we do things. I don't know how they do things from the school where you came from. But at this school, it's ma'am, Mrs., sir, or Mr., followed by the surname. It's a sign of respect. I said, do you allow your child to call you by your first name? And she said, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Now, this lady's about 35 or so. I said, really? Well, ma'am, what you do at home is your business. But when you're at this school, in this district, you show respect for your elders by calling them Mr., Mrs., Sir, or Ma'am. She looks me straight in the eye and yells at me and says, how do you expect my child to treat you with respect when he won't even treat me with respect? Now, I intended to say something diplomatic like, well, ma'am, those are the rules. But I was so frustrated with my day and with what this lady was saying that actually what came out was, ma'am, maybe your child doesn't respect you because you're a 30-something-year-old woman allowing an 11-year-old to call her by her first name, rather than teaching him some basic manners. She walked off in a huff, and the principal was standing right behind her, and boy, I knew I was in trouble. She said, Mr. Seymour, come here. She said, you know you shouldn't have spoken to that parent that way. I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I do apologize. She said, that's okay. I had this exact same conversation with that woman 3 days ago. Thumbs up to you. Which totally surprised me because anyway, but basically, the bottom line is, get your house in order. Get your kids in order. Remind them that you pay the bills, the mortgage, the house. You're the chauffeur, the cook, the cleaner, the bottle washer. And until they start paying rent, and even then, they are to live in your house and follow your rules. And your rules need to begin with basic good manners. Because when your kids go out, they go to a school, or they go to a store, or they act up in a grocery store, or out in public, they represent you. They represent you. People are not thinking, well, that child's a brat because he's just a horrible person. No, they're thinking that child is a brat because their parents don't know how to discipline them. They are thinking worse of you than they are of your children because of the fact that you can't teach your children basic good manners. Now, I've seen a lot of comments up here, and I'll get back to them. But basically, get in contact with me. You can reach me either here or you can reach me on my Twitter site, which is Right Stuff Seymour at Twitter or X, which is WRIT, the letter CMOUR at Twitter. Y'all have a good day, and let's make society a better place, and let's start with ourselves and start with our kids. Y'all have a good day.